那个沙，红黑雨和星夜雨，只有心才有心。Alright, we're going to read Umineko no Naku Koro ni Chiru! And it's the fifth one! End of the Golden Witch! I'm so sorry if I screamed that at the top of my lungs, which I did. Anyway, yeah, this is one of my least favorite episodes of the answer arcs of Chiru, actually. Like, my favorite part of episode 5 is the end of episode 5. Also, if you ever read Umineko and then, like, you finish all of it, go back and read the ending of episode 5. Because, yeah. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. Good morning. Please enjoy this new game by a new game master at your leisure. However, the game has already reached a climax. The culprit has been cornered and there's nothing left to do but to await the final checkmate. But, for that very reason, there must be something for you to spot looking down upon it from afar. The difficulty is fairly easy. But what could possibly deceive you after all this time? Now, let's go! This story is very obviously fictional, fantastic in nature, and it resembles to existing individuals, organizations, locations, or incidents entirely coincidental. You idiot! Isn't it obvious? It'll be fun to kill her and see your face twist in pain! Why else? Look! Look! Don't turn your eyes away. Look at it. Look! 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 It's magic. It's furniture. No matter how much you try to deny me at magic. Look! 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 Sorry, battler. It was pretty fun. Sure, I did just what teacher told me, but look how great it turned out. Apparently, if you start all hostile and needlessly brutal, then turn incompetent and stop at just the right moment, you can spark a huge bump of your affection meter, right? That lonely tone was the desolate sound of the wind blowing by. The glittering rose petals on these bushes were all golden. The cloud of gold butterflies that had once danced through this golden rose garden like fluttering rose petals was no longer anywhere to be seen. The master of the Golden Land is the Golden Witch Beatrice. She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous, or perhaps naive and simple. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer it continued, could no longer be heard. The Golden Witch Beatrice sat like a doll, resting in the deck chair, adorned as beautifully as the golden rose garden itself. She wasn't relaxing there. Her eyes were empty. She didn't respond to any questions. Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. Beatrice sat like a doll. Her hair was down, and Virgilia was carefully tending to it with a comb. The usual Beato would surely have spent this time complaining about this and that regarding her hairstyle. However, she made no response, showed no reaction. So it really only looked like Virgilia was combing the golden hair of a large doll. There was a table alongside them. On it sat a chessboard, along with a jumble of black and white pieces locked in a closely fought battle. However, this setup looked somehow different from normal chess. Maybe the game was similar, though not identical. And on the other side, sitting back in his chair as he contemplated his next move, was a young man. No, perhaps it wasn't his next move he contemplated. Every once in a while he would change the positions of the pieces, reconsidering the situation after every change. Maybe he was reconstructing previous games, trying to discover the thought process behind the moves that had been made. Oh, that's the stage I'm at now. Even though, yeah, I've been spoiled on it, but I feel like I understand it more and more. Anyway, in the past, Kinzo, the Ushiromiya family head, once said that learning chessboard arrangements like this was like taking a journey through the thoughts of old masters. Ushiromiya Battler was on a journey, a search for the thought process that had led the Golden Witch to create this arrangement and make these moves. Battler took out a black piece that should have been moved forward and returned it to its original piece, sighing deeply. Battler's pieces were white. However, on this chessboard, the black encampment was on Battler's side. He was reconstructing the arrangement, trying to play Beato's role. The more I do this, the less I understand your moves. Even Battler didn't expect that Beato would respond to that statement. Or rather, he was pretending to talk to himself, thinking there might still be some chance of her responding. I thought for sure she'd wake up. Just kidding. I didn't know. Beato's eyes reflected nothing, and her mouth told nothing. After begging him to kill her, the Golden Witch had become a corpse that had given up on life. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't step down from this game, and was therefore forbidden sleep. So those words must have reached her ears. However, they probably hadn't reached her heart. The Golden Witch would not sneer at Battler's moves, nor would she praise them or belittle them. By now, Beatrice was nothing more than a living doll. Even so, she would glance at him every once in a while. It would be an empty glance, but a glance nonetheless. Sometimes, she would seem to make some sort of gesture, or even move her lips. However, her movements never managed to communicate anything to Battler. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. Beato, Battler is talking to you. Say something. Giggle or guffaw or something. Even use that shrill laugh of yours if you want. Can you believe it? That shrill laugh of Beato's will never be heard again. However, even if she couldn't answer, his voice surely reached her. That was what Battler believed as he said these words. So he said it again. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. So, you don't understand what this child is thinking? Virgilia answered in a decisive stead. Up to this point, she had done her best to avoid speaking for Beato. After all, there was a chance that Beato would respond in some way. Virgilia didn't want to be the one to steal that chance. So Battler was going to have to bear with this silence until Beato herself answered. Virgilia could no longer bear to watch Battler like this. Besides, Battler also wanted to hear what Virgilia had to say. He believed that conversation would reach Beato's heart. Yep, I don't have a clue. The more I try standing in Beato's shoes and move the pieces like this, the less I understand. A serial murder following an epitaph. Was that as a victory condition, I tried reconstructing the games from the witch's side, but I never ended up making the moves Beato did. In those games, I could find several incomprehensible moves that clearly worked against that victory condition. I don't get it at all. This journey through her thoughts is just too rugged. Even so, you won't give up, will you? I won't. I promised. Kill me. Let me die. I promised to let her die peacefully, and I'm the only one who can do it. Beato's right ankle was bound with a heavy, cold steel shackle. It wasn't tied to anything, so it didn't restrict her movement. However, it symbolized restriction. It was a visualization of the bonds that prevented her from leaving the game until she either won or lost. And That shackle was probably hurting her. The mercilessly cold shackle tormented her over and over inside her waking dream. So there was never any sign of relief in her empty expression. Her eyelids would sometimes tremble like she was having a nightmare. Every once in a while, she let out a pained gasp. Unless I win, Beato will never be released from the curse that prevents her from sleeping peacefully. Are you sure you want to be doing this? It seems the 5th game has already started. Not interested. Why should I take part in any game unless Beato is my opponent? If that's the only alternative, then it's a much better use of my time to reconstruct previous games while taking a journey in search of Beato's thought process.
I'll be the next game master. Any objections? You've got none, right?
I've got nothing but objections. Beato conceded the fight and is unconscious. Isn't this a loss by default and game over for her?
I'll admit a lot's happened to Beato and she's basically been knocked out for now. But that doesn't mean she's lost the will to fight. That's why I'm acting as her assistant. Get it?
Beato was lying down on a deck chair, almost as though she was sleeping. However, she wasn't sleeping, and she wasn't awake either. She was nothing more than a living doll that had given up on victory, who'd asked Balor to perform her last rites, and who had surrendered everything. Of course, if everyone just sat around the next game, the 5th game would never be made ready. So Lambda Delta had succeeded Beato as the next game master, and announced that she prepared the next game. Quit messing around! This is a game between me and Beato. I don't know who you are, but I'm not gonna let you two carry on without us.
No one asked for your opinion. Well, you do, Burn. Accept my challenge or not?
Sure. Go ahead and inherit her role.
The hell? Quit messing around! I don't know who you people are, but I'm not gonna let you ignore Beato and me just carry on by yourselves! Hey, take it easy. Okay, sure, a new player means you'll face new kinds of moves. I'm sure you'll see a lot of that stuff that confuses you, but even that might lead to some big hints, get it?
Who cares?! Oh, let me try that again. I accidentally popped in some stupid window. Who cares?! Quit saying whatever you want and deciding everything on your own! Beato's game has repeated 4 times, and you still don't understand anything right. In that case, I expect that swapping out opponents might lead to some huge hints. That's none of your business! This is our game! Beato prepared it, and she designated me to be her opponent! I don't know what hole you two crept out of, but I don't want you screwing things up! In that case, wake Beato and make her the next game ready. Oops, my bad. I keep messing up! Ugh. In that case, frick. In that case, wake Beato up and make her get the next game ready. Can you? Beato won't be getting up for a while. Anyway, we don't need to have another game. The 4 games she's already laid out are more than enough. And even if we do have some 5th game, there's no reason it shouldn't just be a puzzle Beato lays out and I take on. There's absolutely no reason for you two to butt in. Balor couldn't hide his irritation at the 2 witches called Lambda Delta and Berncastel, who had shown up well after the game's start, and who were now trying to take charge on their own. It looked like these witches were of an even higher rank than Beato, so high in fact that even Beato's teacher Virgilia couldn't even come close. Balor had the feeling he'd seen these 2 several times before. However, this is the first time he'd known their names and spoke to them directly.
You can't get the next game ready without waking Beato. That's why I'll prepare the next game. We aren't so patient that we're willing to wait forever for Beato to regain consciousness. Right, Bird?
I don't like boredom. It really ticks me off.
We really don't give a damn whether you're bored or not. Come on now. Leave everything to this perfect Lambda Delta, okay? I'll take over as the game master. Don't worry, I won't play too much with absolute perfection. Just like Banto, I'll set up plenty of incomprehensible fakes, clues, and bonus hints. I'll make this game a huge hint that'll help you understand Banto's world even better, okay?
Letting my voiceless emotions explode, I slammed the table hard. The two witches didn't flinch at all. One grinned. The other looked indifferent, as though nothing had happened. The two of them just stared at me silently, as though they were reproaching me.
What's this? Not satisfied? Are you saying you'll step down from my 5th game? Isn't that a loss by default?
Battler won't step down. Of course he'll participate in the 5th game.
Don't just decide that yourself! I'm not gonna play along with you two! I don't give a shit! Then it really is a loss by default, right? The which side wins this game? Is it really okay to end this with a human surrendering?
If you step down, the game will end with your loss by default, get it? If you want to guarantee that your lonely sister always meets with miserable circumstances in the endless number of worlds, that option is indeed open to you. When Bernkastel mentioned Angie, Battler's expression changed instantly. You bastard! Don't you dare talk about Angie so lightly! Because you have an ally in me, Bernkastel, the Witch of Miracles, there exists the possibility of a miracle in which Angie's family comes home to her. Well, if you do throw that chance away and guarantee that Angie's endless futures all end in sorrow, that might be pretty interesting too. I vaguely understood what she was saying. Until I win Banto's game, I'll remain trapped in this bizarre world. And if I abandon that victory, then most certainly, my parents and I will never return to Angie. For Angie's sake, even though I know that the witches are toying with me, I must keep on fighting. Damn it! What's wrong? You look unsatisfied. Have you already forgotten how angry you were when your sister was turned to mincemeat? You know, that spectacle where she was torn to bits, ripped to pieces by countless red-hot pliers. You'd better watch more closely next time, okay? Bernkastel pointed the palm of her right hand upwards. As she did, a pale light gathered there, and some kind of blue glowing crystal appeared there. A scene was reflected on its sharp surface, but it wasn't the scene that surrounded them now. If you look deep into that crystal, that fragment, you'd probably learn what was reflected on there. If you stared at it, then you'd surely see the end Angie finally reached after waiting for 12 years and giving up everything for the sake of her beloved brother. The scenes of her death throes as her entire body was torn to bits while she still lived. Damn you! Without thinking, he grabbed at her collar, but as soon as he touched that which made her form, it disappeared like foam on the waves. Then, as naturally as though she'd been there from the beginning, Bernkastel was leaning against a distant wall. If you step down from the game, this will become not just a fragment, but a definite reality. I won't be the one to create that future. You'll do it yourself. So decide, okay? Figure out what you want to do with your beloved little sister's future. Balor's fists shook with anger, but even if he swung them down, he wouldn't be able to hit Bernkastel. This witch was like a phantom or a cat who wouldn't even let someone pet her if she didn't wish for it. Don't worry, Balor. And she was telling the truth. For Angie's sake, I can't step down from this fight. Even if these unpleasant witches, Give me a moment. I have to do something. Nosies. What? Oops, I'm babbling things again. Alright, I'm back. Okay. And she was telling the truth. For Angie's sake, I can't step down from this fight. Even if these unpleasant witches hijack the game board.
That's just like you, Bern. You're even heartless when you threaten people. That's how it is, Battler! You aren't allowed to step down from the game board. You and Banter are nothing more than pieces on the board that exist to distract us from our boredom. Even your incomprehensible anger and irritation make for the wonderful treat to satisfy us. Well, What you're doing now only makes for a cheap snack, though.
Like those curry-flavored potato wafers that sell for 30 yen a pair.
You damn witches!
Fight for Angie's sake, okay? And for Beato's too, right?
In a way that was admonishing or perhaps babying. Like the headache you get after eating something too sweet. Berncastle tormented Balor and smiled. By now the host of this tea party, Beato, was absent. The guest witches were also already making themselves at home. Well, you do, Shinomiya Battler! Will you surrender to fate? Just step down. You've had enough of being toyed with as a witch's piece, right? It sure is tough being one of Burn's pieces. I'm sure she'll use you and throw you away just like she did with Angie.
I'm not giving you the option of stepping down. Keep fighting for the sake of your sister's future. I'm your ally. Until you win, I'll support you so you can reach that future. For all eternity. Until I get bored.
I can't let her provocation and cajolery rile me up. These witches know I get mad easily. They're trying to take advantage of that. Balor withstood it all and finally relaxed his clenched fists. If you want to start this 5th game of yours, go ahead and do it. Do whatever you want. Yes, I will do whatever I want. Hey, where are you going? Even though Balor acknowledged his 5th game, he turned his back on them, much to Lambda Delta's surprise. If you're gonna be Beato's substitute, then I'm sure that Berncastle witch over there can stand in for me if she wants.
Not a bad idea. Better than a loss by default.
What the heck? Are you gonna just ignore this episode 5 that I put so much effort into making? Rude!
Balor says he's going to take a break for a while. Until he comes back, I'll be his substitute. How's that sound, Battler?
You do that.
What's wrong, Lambda? So you'll refuse to play if it's against me instead of that fool Battler?
Of course not! I'm glad I get to play with you, Burn! Come on, let's play! Let's play! Let's play together at Lambda Delta's super hyper and cute episode 5!
This technically is a world Beato created. You aren't going to ruin the atmosphere of the story, are you?
Don't worry about that. I'm really good at reading between the lines for that sort of stuff. I made sure to use a Beato-ish atmosphere to make a tale that's even more interesting. Balor, make sure you come back as soon as your break's over, okay? It'd be a shame to miss this. I set up plenty of bonus hints that'll get you even closer to Beato's secrets. Or at least that's what it'll look like when it's actually filled with misdirection that makes stuff more and more confusing. Wait! Hey! Battler! Why aren't you listening when a witch is talking? Without answering, Balor disappeared into the darkness. After shrugging and cackling, the witches immediately started playing with the game board they'd stolen from Beato. Can those witches really understand Beato's game?
Since they're using the same game board, they cannot do anything that this child cannot do. However, they can do things that this child wouldn't do.
What do you mean, things she wouldn't do?
The materials of chess exist so you can play chess. You cannot use them to play cards. However, when it comes to throwing chess pieces at your opponent and scribbling on the board, such things are not impossible to do. However, that would be blasphemy against the game of chess, so people choose not to do that.
That definitely wouldn't be chess anymore. Beato's eyes seemed to cloud slightly with sadness.
Damn them. This game's between me and Beto. I won't let anyone else defile it. At that time, gold butterflies gathered and Ronove appeared, holding out a tea set with black tea. Would you like some more tea? If you wouldn't mind. Certainly. So, how does this journey of yours search Milady's thoughts? I don't have a clue, but I'm enjoying it. However, are you sure about this? Is it truly alright for you to relax here? You mean that game those witches just started all by themselves? Indeed. Just now when I went to serve them some tea, the murders of the first twilight had already taken place. It seems as though the next murder would occur shortly. When Beto and I were playing, the game would be paused whenever someone left their seats. However, those witches wouldn't pause that game just because I wasn't around. Ronove, did you see their game? Just part of it. How was it? Ronove lifted the pot high with an elegant gesture as he poured the black tea. After finishing that, he finally spoke. He gave us impressions of it. It did not have love. What do you mean, love? My apologies. That is how a woman might put it. As a man, one might call it dishonorable. I understood what those words meant. When I met Virgilia's eyes, she shook her head slightly and stared at the floor. I believe it resembles Milady's games greatly on the surface. However, its foundation is quite different. Does it go against the rules of Beto's game? No, it does not. Lambda Delta actually does understand the rules of Milady's game very well. However, Battler stood up. There was no need to make Ronove say any more. Battler. Sorry, Ronove. I know you went to all the trouble of pouring this for me, but tea isn't what I need. So you will go after all? Yeah. We don't need any outsiders in our game. Those guys weren't even here in the beginning. Because I've been loafing about, crazier and crazier witches have been introduced. And now they hijacked this game between me and Beatrice. I've got to take it back. Right now, I'm supposed to be the one taking care of Beto's game board. That means I can't just sit around here. Thank you. I wanted to let this child hear those words. I'm sure she hears them. Milady is simply unable to answer. Beto lay there silently, like a living doll with dull eyes. The game board she created herself had been hijacked by incomprehensible people, and was being turned into a mess. If I was designated to be her opponent, then Beto must have created this game for me. I've got to take it back. Wait here. I'll go and take it back. Of course, Beto didn't respond in any way. That's right. She can't respond, and I have to protect it in her place. I'll be right back. Virgilia, Ronove, I'm counting on you two to look after this golden sleeping beauty. Yes, leave it to us. See you later, Battler. And please, in the game without this child, try to find some part of her. If you can, then even if this child is absent, it will mean you have fought her. You're right. It's all useless. What am I doing? Let's go. And let's take it back. Sorry to keep you waiting, witches! My break is over! When he faced the jet black heavens and yelled this, the whole world shattered as though it were made of thin glass. Then, as though it had been that way since the beginning, it transformed to that smoking room where Battler had fought Beto so many times, and which the two witches had now hijacked. What do you think you're doing? You're only coming back now? It's way too late. Not only has the game reached the second day, it's already at the finale, get it? You never showed up, so I just advanced things on my own. Yeah, like you even waited for me in the first place. Bird was way more skillful and thrilling than you were, right? Shut up. I'm the player. You substitute witches can just take a step back now. Well, I don't really mind if you join in starting now. But there's probably no need for you anymore. Seriously, after all, we're already at the climax. After
this burn will probably corner me and win. What the hell?
Nothing wrong with that, is there? Why don't we let him watch the final endgame?
Of course! Come on over, Ushinomiya Battler! It's almost completely over, but here's the cute and elegant game I made! Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch.
Alright, let's take a look at the tips. So...
Ushinomiya Jessica. Her corpse was found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. The direct cause of death is unknown, but her neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. The wound was deep enough that anyone could easily confirm her death with absolute certainty. Ushinomiya George. His corpse was found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. Okay. Ushinomiya Hideyoshi. His corpse was found in the guest room on the first floor of the mansion. A demon stake had been pierced through his back. The tip of it reached as far as his lungs. Because he was lying face down on the bed, it is unthinkable that he had ended his own life. Servant Genji. His corpse was found in the servant waiting room on the first floor of the mansion. Ushinomiya Rosa. Her corpse was found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. Ushinomiya Maria. Her corpse was found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. The direct cause of death is unknown. Okay. Yeah, you can tell it is different. Maria's never been killed this gruesomely before. That's one of the things. And I don't think... I don't know. I don't usually think the cousins are usually picked as the first 6 targets either. Okay. Any tips? No. The second day, October 5th, 1986. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlor, and with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder, and the culprit is among these people.
Whoa, that means it's conclusive, isn't it? Unless the culprit is a witch who committed murder with magic, that is.
It was you! You killed George! Killed my husband! Why? Why? I didn't kill anyone! I didn't! In a panic with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Aunt Natsuki denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed her back, her long hair, and pointed at Aunt Natsuki, and said it one more time. You're the culprit, Ushinomiya Natsuhi. Cheek
It's Natsuhi! Please open up! As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsuhi yelled. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound. The sound of the door of Kinzo's study unlocking could be heard. As the door opened, a heavily sweet venomous odor flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Kraus was waiting for her inside the study. Natsuhi flew into his arms. His father... is he... Calm yourself. Dr. Nanjo is examining him now. With an uncertain gait, Natsuhi walked toward the center of the study and supported by Kraus. There, a dignified bed fitting for the Ushinomiya family head could be seen along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa. Dr. Nanjo, his father... After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down asleep. He died peacefully. I don't think that Kinzo had any regrets. Father! Father! Sobbing, Natsuhi slumped over the chest of the man who'd fallen into sleep from which he would never awaken. Madame, please, stay strong. Father! Father! This is just too sudden! Natsuhi couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuhi's back, consoling her. Kraus slumped over into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in the memories of his departed father, or perhaps he thought by sitting there he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness in Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo just as he had when Kinzo once sat in that chair contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains. If only he'd been sick in bed for a year or so first. I do wish he could have died after a grace period, during which the proper arrangements could be made. It's the other way around. We should be glad he was in high spirits until the very end. At least that's true as far as public appearances are concerned. Nanjo understood that as well. Ushinomiya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be of a fantastic scale. It would also be a ceremony marking Kraus's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event and carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all the Ushinomiya family still had enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Kraus, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ushinomiya family head. When Kinzo had been lost and confused. In this way, he was able to understand Kraus's distress and sympathize with it. Natsuhi's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuhi as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Kraus was. And as though asking what should be done, Genji lowered his head slightly. Genji and I will deal with the formalities. Kraus, perhaps we should contact the relatives first. Kraus, with his hand still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Kraus really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached them. Leave this to Dr. Nanjo. Kraus, I suggest you first speak with Madame. Maybe she heard that, or perhaps it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuhi came over. Her eyes were red for crying so much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on them even better than Kraus did. Starting now, you are the head of the glorious Ushinomiya family. Let us show everyone inside and out that you have splendidly succeeded your father. As your wife, I, Natsuhi, am prepared to serve you until the day our coffins are laid down aside. Bleh. I messed up, I'm sorry. Starting now, you are the head of the glorious Ushinomiya family. Let us show everyone inside and out that you have splendidly succeeded your father. As your wife, I, Natsuhi, am prepared to serve you until the day our coffins are laid down alongside each other. Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsuhi lent him some reassuring words. When Kraus finally lowered his hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh. Please stay strong. There are a great many people who will plan to devour everything Father has left behind. We must fight to protect Father's honor and wealth. That is the first responsibility of the Ushiromiya head. I understand. I do understand. Dr. Nanjo, Genji, please take care of the legal and funeral arrangements. Especially you, Genji. I ask that you take particular care and see to it the funeral be one fitting for Father. Certainly. And Dr. Nanjo, Father didn't pass away in a hospital, so... Indeed, an autopsy might be required depending on the circumstances. Can't you do something about that? Even though he has passed away, Father's body is precious. Any damage done to it would not be acceptable. I understand how you feel. However, it's also important to deal with these matters properly. And, I don't really know how to say this, but several of the relatives might make things difficult, yes? Who knew how those vultures, after the inheritance, might try to find fault with them? They might claim to have found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Right now, it was important to not only pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but to also solidify the position of a new family head, Kraus. Understood. Please keep it to an absolute minimum. Make sure that Father's dignity is not damaged, even by mistake. That will be fine. Do not worry. In any event, lead Kinzo to us and stay by Kraus's side. Things will start to get quite difficult from here on out. I understand. And you too, dear. Please stay strong. Kraus was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Natsuhi understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone. I will contact the relatives. Please rest for the time being. Kraus didn't respond. Natsuhi, thinking him just to be a bit unreliable in the moment, decided she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsuhi to action, and a resolute expression broke to her face. Things will get busy from now on. Let's start by doing whatever we can do now. I'm sure my husband wants to have some alone time with Father. We should step out for a moment. Good point. After all, this will probably be the last time he gets that chance. Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Kraus were ever to be given time to cry over his dead father, that time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Kraus continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsuhi urged the servants to go. I'll go talk with Jessica too. That child is now the successor to the headship. I'll make sure to tell her to be fully prepared. Wait. As they each started to make their way out of the study, Kraus finally spoke. They stopped walking. Yes? Wait. Yes? Hadn't she already stopped walking just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsuhi understood that he probably stopped her because he wanted to be by his side. The rest of you downstairs. I will stay by with my husband. Please call on us on the phone if anything happens. Certainly. I thought I told you to wait! When Kraus suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsuhi ran up to him. What's wrong, dear? Have I said something rude? If so, please forgive me. No, that's not it. That's not it. Wait a second. Give me some time. Yes, I understand. It's important to sort things out inside your heart. We were just going to leave this place in silence to give you some time, okay? And I'm telling you to wait before doing that. Listen up, no one move. Not even an inch. If you're tired, then feel free to sit in whatever chair or sofa you want. So just stay quiet and don't talk, don't do anything. Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsuhi couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behavior, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsuhi told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on the sofa a short distance off and approached her husband and spoke to him in a small voice. If you order it, I will wait however long you ask. I won't move. So please try and calm yourself.
No, that's not it! That's not it!
Was it really blood, or was he actually being possessed? Krause's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsu became certain that Krause was Kinzo's son after all, and that he was a true successor, more suitable than any other person. Well, he kind of looks like him, like here, and maybe here, I guess. I don't know.
Natsuhi, come here.
Krause stood up and headed toward the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsu realized he must have some kind of secret to discuss.
Yes, dear. What is it? Father dying is bad. But he has already passed away. We cannot turn back time. That's not it. It's bad that it happened now. What do you mean? I've been putting Father's fortune up as collateral. I won't be able to hide it when the division of the inheritance comes into question. What? Collateral, you say? How much?
This is the point where I'd be like, I'm gonna divorce you.
You remember how I helped out Kondo back in Melodyland? Didn't I tell you to break ties with that person? I thought you said you refused him. Why? There is such a thing as a man's honor. I couldn't refuse.
Clown. Krause claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsu knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he couldn't come up with what he... Krause claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsu knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with some deal that he just couldn't refuse.
That wouldn't be a problem if we had plenty of money on hand. But didn't you borrow quite a lot of money for the plan to turn this island into a resort? Yeah, I did! And there were people here and there who lent me a hand along the way! If I'm going to repay them, I can't just sit around my hands! You need money to repay people! You need money to make money! You can't even get started without money! And even the plan for this island would be proceeding smoothly if only there hadn't been problems with the planning company! I made contact with a government official in the city. I even got the governor's word that this would become the newest travel destination in the Tokyo metropolis. The groundwork I laid was completely perfect. Random chance and bad timing were against me. It was just a bit of bad luck, like a traffic accident. That was no accident. It was fraud. You were tricked. They were never drawing up plans for turning this island into a resort in the first place. That's not true. Hijikata's vision was simply overflowing with foresight. The way his eyes were always focused on the whole world and the future taught me that things I always believed to be mere dreams were only the tip of the iceberg of what is possible. Expand your dreams to the world, the future. You heard him say that too, right? Yes, I heard, and I think I remember telling you I thought after we returned home. I said that he was suspicious, that he only spoke of dreams and didn't have his feet planted on the ground, and that you must not have any further relations with him. Hijikata is a wonderful and pleasant young man. One can learn a lot from the way he lives. I can respect him despite his youth. I won't have you insulting him. That's what you said about the whole moon tourism thing. You kept saying it was visionary, that it looked to the future, that it had high aspirations, and what was the end result? Eventually, you yourself admitted that it was utter nonsense, right? I was sure something was wrong ever since that strange man showed up, claiming to be a high-ranking NASA official. That board was nothing more than an international split.
I'm sorry. That was nuts.
That foreigner was nothing more than an international swindler.
Oops. No, that was Krause. My bad.
That foreigner was nothing more than an international swindler. Both Mr. Sonezaki and I were victims in that case. Right now, his vision wasn't mistaken. In the future, there'll surely come a time when the richest people in the world will develop a liking for space travel, and the very first enterprise of that era will probably be monopolized by a single private company. That viewpoint is not mistaken. There is simply a group of international swindlers who are trying to take advantage of that fact and deceive investors across the world. And I'm trying to tell you that this Mr. Sonezaki man was one of them too. Just how gullible are you? Why do you just always accept these suspicious offers without any doubts? Take that back! Mr. Sonezaki is a man with a brilliant future ahead of him. There's nothing suspicious about him. Because the dreams he speaks of anticipates the future. They sound crazy to people who can't see into the future. A woman like you can't see into the future. Yes, a woman like me can't see into the future. But I can see the present. Right in front of me, I can see a pitiful husband who's been taken in by sly double-crossing swindlers and still trust them implicitly even after he's been tricked. Shut your mouth! You don't understand anything about money or business or economics. Don't try to butt in your husband's job. A wife should be satisfied with doing housework. Keep your mouth shut.
Natsu, at this point, I just dumped this man. He's a dumbass. You don't deserve him. He doesn't deserve you. He trash. I'd be like, screw off, Kraus. Without another word, Natsu fell silent, as Kraus had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay beyond the other side of those was almost a indifferent pity. Kraus, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he'd come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never been seen before in the Ushinomiya family's long history. That talent was a gift from heaven. It definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. Kraus is a clown! To give the two of them a chance to talk alone, Natsu told the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death. They left the room for the time being. As she invited Kraus to her bedroom, and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. These were things that Natsuya had been told about, under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd want to know if we were going to get screwed over. Natsuya had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wife's place to intrude on such matters. However, this might have also meant that she abandoned her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depths of the sin had been made quite clear to Natsuhi. Kraus was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps he had gotten a headache. He hid in his face and sank into silence. Natsuhi noticed that the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup of black tea. When she touched the cup of black tea, she noticed for the first time the sound of the cup and the saucer clinking together told her her fingers were shaking. Kraus had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of course, he had put the mansion and property up as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would result in a mortgage being registered. In other words, there'd be record that Kraus had put Kinzo's wealth up as collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. Kinzo, Ava, and the others must not learn of such a thing. Therefore, Kraus had been putting those assets up as collateral using the worst possible method. I signed over the deeds and power of attorney. And what does that mean? What Kraus was probably trying to say, and in essence signed away the rights to his assets. If these assets had been used as a collateral for a loan, Kraus would still have some leeway under the law. He would have to deal with the bank, which would leave absolutely no compassion, but they would be able to work something out within the rules set by society. However, signing away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. In other words, even the mansion they were living in, if the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore his agreement with Kraus and sell the mansion to a third party right this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. Far from using collateral for a loan, this is basically the means of selling the house to borrow money. Natsuhi, you love this man too much. In other words, the moneylenders have the power to make or break the Ushinomiya family as they please. If they were to suddenly sell our house on some slight whim, we'd have to pack our bags and leave right now, wouldn't we? You should have stuck to boxing. That is technically true, however, everyone I had dealings with is very reputable. This isn't consumer financing. It's a transaction based on trust between economically literate men. I trust them, and they in turn trust that by lending me money I will achieve great success in business and give them massive returns on their investment. I signed over the power of attorney as a sign of good faith, so they wouldn't have to doubt the certain success of my business. What happens if I hesitate now? Wouldn't that mean that even I have no confidence in my own business? If you were such a successful businessman, we wouldn't be in debt now, would we? Natsui only barely stopped herself from saying that. Father is dead. What happens next? Will your debt be exposed to the light of day, and will your siblings hold you responsible? That won't be all. It will probably lead to criminal charges. Criminal charges? Why is that? It's better if you don't know. Anyway, this must not be learned of by anyone. Kraus looked at the floor shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He's probably so intent on raising a sum of money that was large, nothing else mattered to him but survival. Kraus had seriously believed he would succeed with several businesses, that he would definitely gain huge profits. So he figured that even if he stepped over a few legal lines, he'd be able to pay everything back before too long and pretend the whole thing had never happened. This may have been the factor that lessened his resistance toward breaking a couple laws, and now Kinzo's death was the worst possible thing had occurred. They wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden for long. What will happen to us? There's no need to worry. You may not believe it, but conditions are most certainly on the rise now. The value of the city real estate I invested in will rise rapidly. Right now I'm working on a project to integrate those and construct a massive business tower. This will be the most reliable of all my investments so far and will prove to be the most successful. However, it will take a little more time for that to bear fruit. It absolutely is certain, but that doesn't mean it will happen now. Will the success of that venture be enough to pay back our debts? Of course it will. I'll be able to wipe out all the debt I accumulated so far. So have faith in me. I only need a little more time. But Father is already dead. We don't have that kind of time anymore, do we? I know that! That's why I have to obtain money from somewhere and pay off those debts right now! Anyway, I need money. Money, a lot of it, right now! Ah! As Kraus roared and clutched at his head, he ripped the bat as if in pain. As she watched, several emotions swirled about in Natsui's chest. Her emotions conflicted as she felt pity for her husband, while also feeling he was a fool. She felt a mixture of resentment and regret toward her own irresponsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. Only Natsuhi is common sense. Even if this day hadn't come, it should have been clear as day that they were in a very critical situation, and yet he had carelessly waited for this moment to come, and was now writhing about. Her husband was so foolish and so pitiful. It'd be easy to let herself get fed up with this. However, she was his wife. For a wife ridiculing her husband as a fool would run in conflict with her responsibilities. No, Natsui, forget your role as a wife. Remember your role as yourself. Just Natsui, forget the Ushinomiya part. Identity is a big thing. My mom, I don't think she would be as miserable if she didn't think about her role as being a mother or a woman. If she had ignored whatever she was taught, I think she would be much happier. She wouldn't think that women are doomed to always suffer or something. Because that's a mentality that I know that my mom has, but then she forces it on all of her daughters. And I'm not gonna say that, because I am very resentful about that. Okay? And, it's a lot of shit. But anyway, I would say that, like, if you always think, oh, what if I'm not feminine, or what if I'm not masculine enough, or whatever, that sucks. You know? Like, thinking that you have a role to play rather than thinking about what you really want deep down. In that sense. And stuff. Anyway. If he was a fool, she would have to support him enough to compensate. However, she didn't have a clue what she should do. Since there had been such a massive amount of money within arm's reach, it was only natural Kraus had to dip his hands into it. It'd also be easy to tell him to be a man and give up on all of it, but that would also run in conflict with her responsibilities. She was Ushiromiya Natsuhi, the woman who had become Kraus's wife and sworn to support him, the new head of the Ushiromiya family for the rest of her whole life. She had to somehow help her husband in his efforts to raise money. Yep, and it's always the emphasis on the last name. Like, for women, like, especially like, I know about with Chinese families, the woman leaves their family for their in-laws, takes on their last name, and lives with their in-laws. At least like old school China kind of thing. But yeah, I just had to put something because that's what I notice a lot. With Natsuhi, the way that she suffers, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just projecting. But I mean, it's not my own suffering, because I'm never taking a role of a mom or no shit like that. I don't want to suffer. She understood it logically, but she couldn't suppress the indescribable dejection that seemed to rise up from the dark depths of her heart. That's right! Father's hidden gold! 10 tons of gold is worth 20 billion yen! If I had that... That's right, if I had that, all our problems would be solved! Natsui, that's it! The witch's epitaph! Let's solve that! Let's solve it together! If we can just find the gold, everything will work itself out! That's right, it must be hidden somewhere on this island! If we had that! If we have that! That hurts. Dear, please stop it. Kraus, acting as excited, as if he thought of a perfect, brilliant plan, grasped Natsuhi's upper arms tightly. Natsuhi couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She wasn't just taken aback because she heard him bring up something as fake sounding as hidden gold. This is Kraus, who usually mocked the story of the hidden gold, saying that it didn't exist and all of it was an illusion his father had created to borrow a lot of money. That was why Natsuhi was doubly taken aback. Yes, let's have Jessica help us too. Maybe some things can only be solved with a child's sensitivity. This is a family crisis. All of us has to stick together. Yes, it's a fanciful riddle that father created. We should be able to solve it, and there's no reason we wouldn't be able to solve it. It's the only way. Oh, Natsuhi, this is wonderful. We still have an option left right here next to us. The gold is on this island. If we had it, every one of our problems would be solved. Natsui, call Jessica right here, right away! Let's overcome this family crisis together! Yes, right now! The school is on this island, it's right beside us! Unable to withstand the pain in the arm he was twisting in his excitement, Natsui knocked Kraus aside. Kraus tripped over the edge of the bed and flopped over to the floor. Please get a hold of yourself! And please calm down! Do you really think that this Ushiromiya family crisis could be solved as something as dreamlike as that? Natsuhi, please cool your head and think of a realistic plan to gather money. I'm going to cool my head as well. Wait, Natsuhi! Maybe he had come to his senses the instant he fell over. Kraus tried to tell Natsuhi to stop, but she kept walking. After closing the door forcefully, Natsui dashed away. What if that was the point he was going to introduce the gold bar to her? And that's why that happened. Natsui ran through the corridor. Even though she didn't want anyone to see her like this, she ran headlong into Genji. My deepest apologies. Madame, have you been injured? I'm fine. Leave me alone. Certainly. Oh, Genji, how are things going in Father's study? It is just as you left it, although Dr. Nanjo is in the parlor. Is that so? Do you have the key to the study? Yes, right here. Give it to me. Let me have some time alone with Father. If my husband asks where I am, tell him you don't know. Certainly. After grabbing the key to the study that Genji was holding out to Natsuhi, Natsuhi rushed up the stairs. She then flew into the study, finally let out a wail, and cried. Father, please forgive our foolishness. My husband and I aren't capable of inheriting all that you created. Please, please, forgive us for our foolishness and our crimes. And if you can forgive us, please guide the way for us fools. Clinging to Kinzo as he slept in bed, Natsui cried even harder. She kept imagining Kinzo sitting up and suddenly patting her head. No, Father isn't the type of person to pamper. More likely he'd yell at me to stop being so noisy. However, neither of these imaginations came true, because it was an undeniable fact that Kinzo had entered an eternal sleep. But even so, Natsui begged the sleeping Kinzo to forgive and help them. It was only still a few hours after his passing. Perhaps his soul was still there listening to her. Believing this, Natsui begged for Kinzo's forgiveness and help even more earnestly.
Too noisy! Haven't I always said that I hold silence as a virtue?
That voice made Natsui jump up in surprise. When she faced in the direction the voice had come from, she saw Kinzo sitting at the study desk, holding up his reading glasses.
Did you get in a fight with Kraus again? Neglecting his wife like that? That Kraus only inherited my bad traits.
Father!
What a wretched-looking face. Wash it. Aren't you the wife of the successor of the Ushiromiya family? You mustn't let the servants see you wear such a shameful expression.
Yes, Father. My apologies. Natsui understood. This is just an illusion. One that Natsui had created out of her desire to speak with the memory of Kinzo as he once was. No, that wasn't it. She believed that just for now, Kinzo's soul had shown itself to her. She was sure that doubting this would cause it to vanish in an instant.
It seems that the instant the family headship has passed on, the family has reached a crisis.
Yes, Father. I wasn't able to support my husband. I am truly very sorry.
The Ushiromiya family is so very cursed. It was a terrible state when I succeeded the headship too. That makes your suffering seem almost cute in comparison.
Kinzo's succession to the Ushiromiya family headship had come suddenly. At the time, he had been nothing more than a single young man from a branch family far separated from the Ushiromiya main family. The main family might have had the honor and tradition, but Kinzo had nothing to do with that. Then the principal members of the main family were wiped out in the Great Kanto earthquake along with their businesses. On top of that, there had been a complicated antagonism between the members of the family at the time. And the elders had all tried to impose their will on the others in that sinking ship. Because of this, they weren't even able to elect a leader to revive the Ushiromiya family. They then found a common ground and selected Kinzo, a youth with absolutely no ties to any of the opposing elders, to be the head. So the elders hadn't really entrusted Kinzo with the rebuilding of the Ushiromiya family. Kinzo had been nothing more than their puppet, with his arms and legs pulled in opposite directions. Yes, I know a lot about your days of suffering, Father.
And then the war started. At the time, I was already tired of life. I hoped I would die on the battlefield, but I wasn't sent to the front lines. However, the state of war grew worse with every day, and the time for the decisive battle on the Japanese mainland seemed to grow ever closer. As terrible as it may sound, I prayed for that day to come quickly.
After listening to approaching footsteps of that reaper that day,
After listening to the approaching footsteps of that reaper, day in and day out.
Okay, never mind. After listening to the approaching footsteps of that reaper in that day, I messed up. Okay. After listening to the approaching footsteps of the reaper day in and day out, It is said that Kinzo started cutting his ties with the world one by one. Oh my god, the Reaper of the 13th Step. Sorry, Higanbana reference. Then on that day, when he had severed all of his regrets, when he had reached a state of enlightenment, it is said that he had a mystical experience. It is said he met her, the Golden Witch, Beatrice.
I made a contract with the witch and was given the power of gold and madness. On that day, the old me died and a new me possessing the insane power of magic was born.
I know. And after the war, you used your ingenious cunning to revive the Ushinomiya family. The now deceased elders who knew Kinzo at the time had whispered to each other that Kinzo must have bumped his head on the battlefield and returned with a different personality. That was how much Kinzo had stood out after the war. Whether the story about Kinzo meeting the witch was true or not, there could be no doubt that the extraordinary experience of war had prepared him for death and let him reach a state of enlightenment. If he wanted to describe the mystical experience following all that as a meeting with a witch, that claim certainly shouldn't be dismissed out of hand. That's right. You returned from the war, conquered the witch Beatrice, and became the head of the Ushinomiya family in the true sense.
Correct! Before I met Beatrice, I was nothing more than a puppet, only the head in name. I only became the head after conquering the Golden Witch.
Father, will this Golden Witch aid my husband Kraus, now that he's the new head?
Oh, she will, assuming that he has truly succeeded the headship.
What do you mean by truly succeeded?
I mean, it depends on whether he bears the responsibility and pride of the Ushinomiya family head in the truest sense. Natsuhi, you should understand this. The headship is not inherited by blood. It is inherited through spirit and conviction. Even though Kraus is my eldest son, he cannot be called the true head if he does not possess these things. And if that spirit were to dwell in a human, even someone other than Kraus, they would make a splendid new head. Beatrice will lend her power to that true head. Isn't that right, Beatrice? Beatrice, come out.
Just kidding. Just imagine if she did. When Kinzo called the witch's name, gold butterflies seethed out of every corner of the room. This fantastical scene had an otherworldly beauty to it. It was like standing in the midst of a blizzard of golden flower petals being blown about in a rose garden of gold. As Natsuki stared at the scene in shock, the gold butterflies gathered and formed a human shape. Then the witch of the portrait appeared.
Indeed, I am the Ushinomiya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. I am free to run rampant. I listen to no one's orders.
And there is only one person in the world who can control her. Me! That is why I am qualified to be the Ushinomiya family head.
So, it's that pride of yours that qualifies you.
Pride requires self-confidence and bravery, and it is the embodiment of the insatiable desire to gain power to match those traits. That is why I control you.
Watching men who speak of pride turn those desires into reality can be quite pleasant. The quiet man of action is nothing more than an excuse used by the extremely lucky. A true monarch also speaks of what he doesn't have, and he makes that pride a reality without fail. If one is to control me, they must possess such a monarch's pride.
Do you understand, Natsuhi? A true monarch fears no hardship. They declare that they will overcome anything without fail, even if they haven't yet figured out how. This gives hope to the weak. They gather, revere the monarch, and swear to assist him. This is where power is gained and his words is carried out. Engrave that into your heart.
Yes, Father. Natsuki understood. Though this mystical experience, Kinzo was telling her how to prepare herself to overcome the hardship, even after his own death. Feeling a warm sensation rise up in her chest, she let the valuable words Kinzo had given her echo through her mind over and over. A true monarch. In other words, the true headship of the Ushinomiya family must not fear hardship. Such a person must believe that they can overcome any hardship. If they can't even believe it about themselves, then they'll have no chance of overcoming their challenges. She suddenly felt very ashamed of the way she entered this room, sobbing and asking Kinzo what to do.
I was foolish.
Of course there's no time for crying when the Ushinomiya family is upon us.
Oops, I'm sorry. That was Nazi. Of course there's no time for crying when the Ushinomiya family crisis is upon us. Now that we've inherited the Ushinomiya family from you, Father, you must protect its honor no matter what.
Huh. Even though you can't even draw a blueprint on how to repay Krause's debts.
Beatrice laughed unpleasantly. No, that wasn't it. She was testing Natsuhi to see whether she possessed the mental readiness to be a true monarch. Natsuhi wasn't confused anymore. She answered clearly, gazing into Beatrice's eyes.
Yes, at this moment I have not yet discovered the method we should pursue. However, my husband is the new head of the Ushinomiya family, and I am his supporting wife, so I will proclaim it in my husband's place. Let us hear it.
Ushinomiya Krause and Natsuhi will definitely overcome these trials and protect the honor of the Ushinomiya family. You have nothing to worry about, Father.
Do you know the scope of Krause's debt as well as the horrible state things are in?
Yes. If the worst happens, we're ordered to leave this mansion tomorrow. We won't be able to refuse. During the distribution of the inheritance, the relatives might even file a criminal complaint. However, there is no need to worry. We will repay all the debts before then and restore our honor. As she stood at attention with a resolute attitude, Natsu proclaimed this clearly with Ushinomiya Kinzo and Beatrice as witnesses. For a while, they remained silent as though weighing Natsuhi's resolve. Kinzo chuckled and turned away.
How vexing! Why couldn't this person have been my son?
The very fact that a woman with such a disposition married your husband is another sign of your great luck.
Beatrice, this is my final order.
Now that you are no longer the head, I am not obligated to obey your orders.
Oh! In that case, obey the orders of the new Ushinomiya family head.
You are no longer the head, and Krause is not yet the head. Whom are you suggesting that I serve?
I will leave that to you. It is up to you to decide who is qualified to succeed the Ushinomiya family head and who is fitting to bear the mark of the one-winged eagle. You will ensure that it is so.
I refuse. I won't listen to the orders of a man who isn't the head.
No, this is different. This is a will, the last order that the head left behind for you.
Then it seems I will have to obey. After all, I can be quite accommodating.
Liar!
Huh.
You're only doing this because I've caught your interest, aren't you?
I can't hide anything from you, can I?
Natsuki,
Yes, Father.
go and overcome your hardship.
Yes. That might have seemed like a mere response to Natsuhi, but to Kinzo and Beatrice it seemed to be something of a much greater significance. Beatrice nodded deeply, and with a motion as elegant as her dress, she bowed deeply before Natsuhi.
The Ushinomiya family alchemist, the golden witch Beatrice is present. I shall give you my aid to assist the Ushinomiya family in overcoming another crisis.
Thank you. I will need your power. We will most certainly overcome these trials.
I will not hold back my support for your cause, but there is something I must warn you about beforehand. I understand that your troubles now could be solved if I were to grant you a vast quantity of gold, like I did when I saved Kinzo from this crisis. However, that is something I cannot do.
Is that so?
Sorry, Natsuhi. Beatrice's gold came from a contract limited to my generation. It was agreed that it only be passed on to another person who solves the witch's epitaph.
The gold is sealed away by the epitaph. As long as it is not solved, you cannot be given the golden magic.
I understand. Then I shall search for another method by which we can save ourselves in the crisis. My husband said his plan would take time, but he also said it would surely be sufficient to repay our debts. If we can buy enough time for that to happen, we'll be able to overcome this trial.
Good, Natsuhi. Continue.
But Kinzo is already dead. The doctor and the servants are preparing his funeral. You are about to contact the family members. By your own hand you will bring an end to this ploy for a time. How charming is the guillotine where you lower the blade yourself.
Startled, Natsuki looked up at the ceiling. There wasn't actually anything there, but even so, Natsuki had found something.
So their magical power has descended.
Natsuki, have you made up your mind? What magical miracles do you desire from me?
Once again, all those who had witnessed Kinzo's corpse were gathered in the study. Faust was still impatient and clutching at his head. Genji was also as expressionless as ever. Nanjo and Kumasawa wore bewildered expressions on their faces. But in stark contrast to all of them, Natsuki wore a resolute expression.
Dear, let me ask you one more time. Your plan for raising money is absolutely certain.
Yes! Give it a year. No, just half a year, and it will certainly bear fruit. But it's just impossible to hope for anything right now.
Then we will wait.
But you said it yourself. Father's already dead.
Father has not passed away. He's still there as healthy as ever.
When Natsuki said this, everyone jumped and looked up, because they instantly understood what those words meant. However, Cross alone didn't get it right away and asked her.
What do you mean by that? Father is already, in reality, right there.
I will say it again. Father is still in good health. He's busy with his research, so he'll be even less able to leave his study than usual. Because of this, we must handle all external affairs ourselves, so that Father can devote himself to his research without being burdened by meaningless tasks. In short, nothing will change from the way things have been. Do you understand, Genji?
Yes. The furniture of the One-Winged Eagle will continue to serve the master.
Kumasawa, and you, Dr. Nanjo, do you understand what I'm saying?
Is that truly alright, Natsuki?
It may be true that Father passed away today, but if everyone right here, right now believes, we can revive Father with magic.
It's impossible, madame. That is just too much. The time of death will be made clear during the autopsy. We can't stop it from looking suspicious.
Father will not pass away, so there will be no reason for there to be an autopsy.
Of course, she wasn't planning to make it seem like Kinzo would live forever. The fake life given to Kinzo would only last until Kraus could repay his debts. After that, Kinzo's soul would finally be able to rest in peace. Nanjo repeatedly said that the time of death would be discovered during the autopsy, but Natsuki kept saying that this wouldn't be a problem.
Father will not pass away by being reported dead.
I see. He'll be reported missing.
After clapping his hands together, Kraus stood up shaking his fists.
Yes. Once we manage to pay back the debt and finish our preparations for laying Father to rest, we will then announce that Father has disappeared.
Rokenjima's vast uncultivated forest was a perfect place to stage a disappearance. One day Kinzo would go out to the forest for a walk and never return. They would search for him without success and then be forced to report his disappearance.
If he disappears, we can file a report of his death even without a corpse. In other words, we can hide him long enough to have him declared legally dead. What do you think, Dr. Nanjo? There won't be any problems that way. Yes, that might work. Is this really okay, madame? If we stay silent, I'm sure we could keep Master's death a secret. However, if we were to slip up even once and let someone find out...
Kumasawa, don't be so loud. Father is sleeping right over there, correct? Are you trying to wake him?
It isn't a corpse. Kinzo is sleeping. As Natsuki said that, Kinzo lay quietly on the bed as though nothing at all was odd about her words.
Come, try to remember. What form did you have?
What sort of life did you enjoy?
Once again, a storm of gold butterflies started to swirl, covering Kinzo's cold body. Then after the butterflies exploded into fine gold powder and disappeared, just like those fairy tales that have been told over and over since long ago, Kinzo slowly opened his eyes and sat up.
Father!
Natsuhi, let me first make one thing clear. I did not coax you into doing this because of my attachment to life.
You liar. Don't tell me you didn't anticipate this at least a little. How does it feel, Kinzo? How is your body?
It isn't bad, but it feels somewhat like being in a dream. I feel light.
Your being that wasn't permitted to remain in this world, yet you still remain here. Don't start complaining about a little discomfort now. Is your body truly alright? Is it really okay?
Actually, it feels quite pleasant. If this is what the world after death feels like, playing the ghost might not be half bad.
How is this, Natsuhi? Kinzo has revived. That means a funeral is unnecessary. Your hardship has been resolved.
Beatrice. As Natsuhi tried to find words of gratitude amidst her confusion, Beatrice waggled her pointer finger and spoke.
There is no need for thanks. A ruler is allowed to be proud. I will not pay heed to requests, but I will follow orders.
Even so, I'll say it. Thank you. This way, you've bought some time for my husband. We'll handle the rest.
Be warned, Natsuhi. Kinzo may have revived, but that is not an eternal thing. It will only continue as long as my magic does. Be warned that magic-resisting toxin might destroy the magic. You must understand the laws of magic correctly and work hard to maintain it. I can show you a miracle, but it's your role to grasp it and hold it.
Of course. We definitely won't neglect the miracle you've given us.
Very well. Yes. It would appear masters need to be changed out every once in a while, just like floor mats. I like it. I shall serve you, Ushiromiya Natsuhi. I'm the Ushiromiya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. Call my name whenever you wish. I shall appear and grant you a miracle.
Thank you. I am Ushiromiya Natsuhi. I will employ you and protect the honor of the Ushiromiya family. And we are done with this chapter. Yay! The family conference of the previous year, October 5th, 1985. Okay. And let's see. Yeah, so it's pretty much confirmed. Kinzo is dead. So I no longer have to act like it's so spoilery when it's not true. Beatrice, the Golden Witch and the Endless Witch, Beato's piece who speaks on behalf of the illusion of the witch. She claims all the crimes on Rokenjima were caused by the illusion of the witch. In the 5th game, she clashes with Castle, who denies this illusion, because she herself is nothing more than a piece, and the higher plane version of her has stepped down as a game master. She isn't in a position where she can know the truth of the 5th game. This puts her in a different position than the one she held in the games before now. Castle, the Witch of Miracles, also knows as the witch that knows that miracles don't occur. In the 5th game, she participates as a player in a position to Beato. However, from the very beginning, her aim has been to deny the illusion of the witch. Her only goal is to crush Beato and her world as a way to stave off boredom. Though she does deny the illusion of the witch, she is no ally of Battler. Virgilia, a now retired Endless Witch and Beatrice's teacher. She used the endless magic properly and devoted her life to the smiles and happiness of people. She taught Beatrice the endless magic, believing that Beatrice would also devote herself to the people, and retired. Though she was Beatrice's teacher, she was also a magician employed by Beatrice's family. For that reason, she interacted with Beatrice in a manner fitting for a servant. Some point to this as the source of Beatrice's arrogance and recklessness. I don't know if that one's changed. We don't have to read those. Ushiromiya Battler. The man designated to be Beato's opponent in the first 4 games. Back in the 5th game, he's displeased that Lambda Delta has taken over as the game master, so he does not participate as a player. Lambda Delta. In the place of Beato, who stepped down from the position of game master in the 4th game, Lambda Delta serves as the new game master in the 5th game. Therefore, it is expected, while the 5th game may be quite similar to the previous ones, there will be differences. She hates boredom as much as Burn Castle, and depending on the situation, she may become either an enemy or an ally to Beato or Burn. Okay, no tips. Alright, good night. Bye-bye.